A thank you note. For what? It's the opposite direction. I'm thanking you for teaching your wonderful class. Let me just double check and make sure it's on the list. It should be. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Oh, it's very quiet in here. It's too quiet. Too
It's like the first day of school.
Yeah, something like that. So Richard, I saw from the angle of picking up Eva at school, so from the, the school side of the equation, and from the, building side, you should come and you should come with me someday. We'll pick up Eva and we'll take a look at it. It's really because it's towering in a way that you didn't ever really notice it. No, I'm going on Monday because we're going to talk about the streaming stuff and the wiring for it and everything. But I think it sounded like today was a good meeting over there. I assume it. Well, at this point, when it comes to a building, if it's not a big deal, that's a good thing, right? That is. Yes, well, windows are important. I once actually, I was just saying this the other day. So in Jerusalem, there is a famous synagogue called community called Kol HaNeshama, and it started actually long before I was born, I think. But they just built their first building when I was younger, and we started going. It's like typical Israeli stuff. They were having services there before the doors and the windows were in. It was just just literally the more. I was just going to say, there was nothing even resembling, I think, a building department, or if there was, I was going to say, in Israel, there's ways to get around those kinds of things, I think, makes it simple, All right, well, we're going to take the optimistic outlook, right? There's no reason not to. No, it's one of my favorite lines that you taught me, whether you realize it or not. Every once in a while you'll say it. It costs you nothing, right? I use that now all the time because there are any number of things that work in that category, actually. It costs you nothing. Why not? Okay. Good Shabbos to Zaretsky's. It's great to see you guys. But Marilyn's walking away. We lost her already. Look, the board members never have a break, right? Always do something, I'm sure. It's just the way it is. So why is everybody so stoic? All right, so there's some reasons to be stoic. I'm not, we're here. That's exactly right. You are here. And I was just telling Lauren, this is one of my clear memories in the temple, is this time of year, the sun would hit, if it was a day like this, would come through one particular window and it would hit directly in my face. So for at least 3 or 4 weeks of the year, I would have to do the service basically blind. But luckily I've been doing this for a few years, so I remember most of what I'm supposed to do. So that always helps. Lauren, how you doing?
I'm good.
Good. It's good to see you. All right, let me see what time it is. We still got a couple minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes, people. This is an unusual scenario for me, and that I'm prepared this far in advance, so I'm not rushing at the last minute. And everybody can hear us okay? That's always the big question of the day. Big room, tricky to fill. Looking forward to it. Again, I'm gonna be. It doesn't cost me anything to be the optimist. I'm gonna be the optimist. That's a big part of being a rabbi, I suppose. We're only pessimists on Tuesdays. It's my day off. It's no Rosh Hashanah this year. I believe Erev is a Sunday night, end of September. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, it is the end of the month. Otherwise, we would be likely swamped. Swamped in good ways, but swamped nonetheless. That is for sure.
Thank Second Adar for that one.
Oh yes, that's true. We'll have to teach about Second Adar another time. There's a second to a lot of things actually. Our calendar is wacky. It is a truly wacky thing. I heard it was a very good meeting. It was no. It seemed like I had a feeling that everybody would get along nicely. I'll take them out for coffee afterwards. Doesn't hurt, right? Yeah. Hey, look, keep trying. It'll be easier once we have a roof on, that probably makes things a little simpler in that way. But All righty. Well, I think we can get to it's 6 o'clock exactly. Okay, good Shabbos, everybody. Good Shabbos to our camera friends, our Zoom friends. Good Shabbos to Cantor Lauren. So we'll get started candle lighting or song?
We can do a song.
Let's do a song. Let's do a song. Let's do that.
Ojavo shalom aleinu, Ojavo shalom aleinu, Ojavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Ojavo shalom aleinu, Ojavo shalom aleinu, Ojavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam shalom. Salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam shalom. Ojavo shalom aleinu, Ojavo shalom aleinu, Ojavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Ojavo shalom aleinu, Ojavo shalom aleinu, Ojavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam.
We'll turn in our prayer books to page 120 as we light and bless our Shabbat candles. I'll do the lighting. Cantor will do the blessing. Just walk back to where the mic is. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
We'll turn now to page 130 as we begin Kabbalat Shabbat together at the very top of the page.
Lechu neranena l'Adonai nairia letzurishenu nekadma fanav betodah Bizmirot Nari Aloy Ay Nay Nay Ay Nay Ay Nay Nay Ay Nay Ay Nay Nay Ay Nay Ay Nay
Turn now to page 131, Shiru Ladonai.
Shiru
turn now to page 132 at the bottom of the page, or Zarua. Turn now to page 134, Zamru Ladonai, at the very top of the page.
Zamru Ladonai bechinor vekol zimra. 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 Zamru Ladonai bechinor vekol zimra.
We're now on page 135, Romamu, the fourth paragraph in Hebrew, towards the middle of the page.
Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu be'ar kosho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu be'ar kosho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu be'ar kodsho.
We'll turn now to L'chadodi on page 138. A reminder, we'll do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs, and the last one we will stand and face towards the back of the room, the door we walk through.
L'chadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
L'chadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה. סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי בעורף קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Please be seated. We're now on page 140.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות. עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. צדיק אתה מר יפרח, כארז בלבנון ישנא, שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו. עוד מנו ומצבא, תשני ורעננים יהיו, להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי, ולא עוולתם בו.
We rise in body or spirit for the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
ילמד דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי.
בחייכון וביומכון וחיי כל בית ישראל. בגלה בגלה ובזמן הריב.
ויאמרו
אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך. לעולם ועלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם יינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה ויאמרו Amen. We remain standing as we turn to page 146 for the Baruch Hu.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Marechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed Le'olam va'ed Yain 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 yain
Please be seated. We'll join together in English on page 148. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני
Baruch Shemo.
המריב הרביב
Amen. We'll turn now to page 150.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו למדת על כן אדוני אלוהינו ושופטנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו לאורך ימינו מאהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני
Baruch Shemo.
אוהב עמו ישראל
Amen.
שמע Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please join with me on page 154. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Let's read together on the top of page 157 in English. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. As we turn to page 158, Mi Chamocha.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נאמן בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע יום לפני משה, זה אלינו ואמרו, זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימוך לעולם ועד.
Turn to the next page, Hashkivenu.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hashkivenu leshalom, ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hashkivenu leshalom. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm.
We'll turn now to page 162, Vishamru at the very top of the page.
לדורותם ברית עולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת מי נפש, שבת מי נפש, שבת מי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
I'll invite everyone to rise in body or spirit as Cantor Lauren will help us to begin the Amidah on page 164, and then as always we'll continue silently from there. Please go at your own pace, and if you're standing when you're finished, you may be seated.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agit ilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Ay, 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 shalom. Hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh shalom. Hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu. May the one who brings peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who brings peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who brings peace bring peace down, bring peace down. Oh, say shalom. Imeroma. Oh, say shalom.
We'll turn now to page 371. In a moment, we'll offer our Misha Berach, our prayer for healing. And in a second, I'll read our Misha Berach list, but of course, we'll connect ourselves and think of those that are really suffering, that are in Ukraine, and those that have now started a long and arduous trek to finding at least a temporary home, if not a new home altogether. So we, of course, extend our hearts to those across the world that need our prayers and our hopes for healing. In addition to that, we'll think in our community tonight of Debbie Block-Kroll, Gail Gambino, Brad Friedman, Deborah Fogarty, Mike Klinghoffer, Chaim Ben Yosef Fachava, Norma Polsak, Dina Batchana, Bensi Tepper, Chaim Leib, Joyce Weinberg, Stu Pollack, Jane London, Catherine Guarino, Judy Stern, Miriam Kornfield, Raz Brody, Chana Ruth Bat Sarah, Fagel Tzipora Bat Elisheva, Richard Gambino, Michelle Sawicki, Idol Basha Bat Yitzchak, Tzvi Menachem Ben Chaim, Rivka Bat Devora, Janice Kurz, David Dowling, Israel Ben Yitzchak, Ben Sion Ben Moshe, Lorraine Danis, Buddy Kossoff, Shelley Newmark, David Kyle Klotman, Rivka Bat Rachel, Sarah Bat Chana, Moshe Eliezer Ben Sivya, Peretz Ben Yehuda, Leah Bat Naomi, Gedalia Ben Leah, Justin Banner, and Sipora Ahaba Bat Yehudit Rachel. In addition to those names that we mentioned, if there are other names that would like to be mentioned here in the room with us tonight, and those that are on the Zoom can certainly add as well. So if anybody here would like to share some names, we'll start on this side of the room and work towards the back, and then this side of the room. And if you have names to share, just raise a hand. And we'll join Cantor Lauren on page 371 in the middle of the page as we offer our Misha Berach together.
Misha Berach Avotenu Bekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Ekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Cantor, you can take a little bit of a break. So the first thing I just want to explain, in case anybody saw me move my phone over here and furiously start texting. It's not a normal process for me in the middle of the service. I am also tech support, and Shelley told me that the stream wasn't working. Thankfully, it is, and everything was fine, but I just didn't want anybody to think I was, checking the score of the games. And after, unfortunately, Wisconsin got bounced. I'm looking at my friend Sydney over there. We're fellow Wisconsin people and still not over that one. But anyway, on to Torah from basketball, although I probably could connect it to that too another time. So this week's portion is a tough one. Parshat Shmini, which means Shmona, 8, okay, is the 8th day. Sort of an interesting thing when you think about it. Our tradition, of course, focuses on 7 days, right? 7 is the sense of a complete week, of a complete existence, complete creation. But there's always a day after. It's kind of like, when you come back to work or school after a vacation, that day doesn't usually go very well, right? There's something about that day, there's just something off right from the beginning. Nobody's really in their right space. And that's kind of what happens in this week's portion too. So what is the Shmini about? After the 7 days of ordination, 7 days of basically, an opening for the Mishkan. So it's something for us to think about, Richard, when we open the building. I don't know, the 7 days might be a little bit much, but that's the idea. They sort of spread this experience over an entire week, and now they're really ready to get to work, and everything seems like it's in place, everything should be good to go, and then we get this horrible story about Aaron's 2 sons, Nadav and Avihu, who all we're told really is that they go up to the altar and they offer some kind of thing they weren't supposed to offer. The Hebrew says an alien fire of some sort, and they are obliterated on the spot. So it's a tough one for sure. Also, anybody who's clergy looks at that story and is a little bit concerned, right? What's going to happen to us when we get up here? We're going to be obliterated in some form or the other. But, our hearts go out to it, and it's a hard one to figure, and I'm not sure that there really is a satisfying answer to why and how. But I came across a teaching that I wanted to share tonight that has me just thinking about on a metaphoric level a little bit differently about not just this portion, but actually what is a very tough book of the Torah to study. Because a lot of it is really focused on rules, on statutes, on procedures, on all of the things that most of us, unless we're an administrator, Marilyn, I'm thinking, this kind of stuff I'm sure works right in your wheelhouse. But for many people, it's hard. It feels very distant. It feels cold. It feels like it's lacking in that something. And so I want to share this teaching today that actually says that maybe we've got it backwards. And keeping with, as I have done the last few weeks as we're in Women's History Month and trying to really highlight not just history, but present and future, and trying to hold up some teachers who I greatly respect. And this is Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg. I'm not sure if anybody knows. So she's written a lot of different books. She's been in, I think those, I hope she won't hear me say this, but somewhat ridiculous list that the Forward have of like the top 50 rabbis or like the 30, whatever that business is. I'm not jealous that I'm not on these lists. I promise, I just think they're absurd. But in any case, she is deserving because she really is wonderful, and she's written on a lot of different subjects. But she takes actually this kind of idea. It's less focused on this week's portion. I'll bring it back to that. But really talking about how we look at this part of the Torah and how we look actually at the whole concept of what is religion to us, right? What is theology? What is philosophy? How do we understand what it is to be a good Jew and connect with God? And she challenges some assumptions here, which I really thought were quite striking. So I'm going to share quite a lot of her words and try to comment in between. So she begins her writing and she says, all too often we think about connections with the sacred, with the holy, with God as being about warm, fuzzy feelings. Spirituality, mysticism, those moments in prayer and meditation when something feels like it's opening up, even just a little bit. And yet, the Torah makes it clear that even the most powerful theophany, the encounters with the divine, isn't, in the scheme of things, all that important. Okay, that's a big statement to make. She says that basically all of this stuff, this spirituality, this mysticism, this meditation, all these other things, they're all lovely, but in the end, according to what she's trying to argue here, they're maybe not as important as we might think. So she goes back to the giving of the Ten Commandments a few months ago when we were reading in Exodus and Parshat Yitro. And she says that after the giving of the Ten Commandments, while the Israelites are still hanging out at Mount Sinai, God invites Moses to, quote, ascend to God, we're told in chapter 24, with Moses' brother Aaron, Aaron's sons Nadav and Avihu, and the 70 elders of Israel. And they do so, and the Torah tells us that, quote, they saw the God of Israel, and under God's feet there was the very likeness of sapphire brickwork, like the very sky for purity. They beheld God, and they ate and they drank. It's an amazing thing, really, she says. They saw God. They had a snack with God. They beheld the divine in a heavenly vision of brilliant sapphire blue. This is peak religious experience, is it not? So Rabbi Ruttenberg continues. She says, this is so much of how the popular conversation often talks about spirituality. It's immersive, it's ecstatic, quote, authentic, powerful, profound experiences that are deeply aesthetic. They feel good, so good, whether or not one actually, well, sees something like divine brickwork or the Holy One's toes, or even gets a nosh. The experience of peak religiosity, says Rabbi Rettenberg, is often painted as being about what happens in the moments of profound connection. The beholding, the feeling, the experiencing, the grooving. And yet, after the communal vision of God, Moses continued up the mountain, leaving his friends behind. He stayed there for 40 days and 40 nights, we're told. And while up there, he didn't eat, he didn't drink, because his experience was about more than just sensual or aesthetic pleasure. Moses received commandments, mitzvot. Religious practice is meant to transform who we are and how we live in relation to the world, she continues. The 16th century code of law, the Shulchan Aruch, which those you may remember me teaching you about not so long ago, recommends donating just a little bit of money, even just a few coins to tzedakah, as you are about to begin prayer, as part of our general obligation towards economic redistribution. Every weekday morning before prayer. Don't worry, not on Shabbat. Okay? After doing so, she says, it becomes harder to pray only for our own personal needs and warm, fuzzy feelings, and to forget about the suffering and injustice just outside our door. In other words, she's pointing to this tradition, which is that when you come in to pray, I know everybody's praying every weekday, I'm sure every one of us is, right? But when you come into shul on a weekday, in a traditional synagogue, you will often see a tzedakah box right in the front. And you will see as people come in the door, not that they're, paying a tax. They are doing something that actually has a purpose behind it, beyond just the concept of giving. It's also about a certain kind of focusing. It takes the focus off of us, and it puts us on our responsibility to others. It's the first thing we're supposed to do before we pray for ourselves, before we think about ourselves, before it becomes all about us. So now she'll quote one of my favorite teachers, our favorite teacher, Rabbi Heschel. And Rabbi Heschel puts it in a very powerful way. Heschel says, prayer is meaningless unless it is subversive, unless it seeks to overthrow and ruin pyramids of callousness, hatred, opportunism, falsehoods. The liturgical movement must become a revolutionary movement, seeking to overthrow the forces that continue to destroy the promise, the hope, the vision. Rabbi Rettenberg then continues, it's not about how great it feels to connect with God. And she really puts it down to the mat. She says, that's really, really, really not the point. It can be a lovely side effect that can refuel you in the work, to be sure, but it's not the point. The point is not the ecstasy. The point is not personal gratification. The point is about what happens on top of the mountain, so to speak. So here then she draws this to this idea of brit, of covenant. And she says that covenant is about using freedom in service to others. Covenant is about realizing that true liberation is tied up in obligation. Our obligations to ourselves, to those with whom we are in community, to those outside our community who are vulnerable, to the world as a whole, and yes, ultimately to the divine, to God. It is through this work, this attention to sometimes achingly mundane details, often focusing on others' needs rather than our own, that we, slowly, sometimes painfully, become the people we were meant to be all along. So what is Rabbi Rettenberg really talking about here? What is she trying to connect to our Torah, to our portion, to Nadav and Abihu, and all of these things? Judaism has both of these elements. It has a very deeply mystical, spiritual aspect to it, one that was cultivated over generations. But in the Torah itself, the focus is much more on the mundane, much more on the lists of rules and of procedures, to the point where you actually can get even frustrated reading about. And it's very easy to distance ourselves from this part of the Torah or from the parts of the Torah that are about that and skip ahead in the pages to the places where we're all ecstatic and we're having a great time, we're talking about God and apparently eating snacks. Okay, that's the way our minds tend to work, is we go to the ecstatic place. We go to the place where there's meaning, where we see the mountain, where we receive the Ten Commandments, where we see God's face or feet or whatever it may be. And it's not that she's suggesting that that's not an important part of Judaism or an important part of our prayer, an important part of our Jewish lives. She's not saying that at all. But I think what she's saying is that there needs to be something of a rebalancing of the scales. And when we study these sections of Torah, it's an opportunity to do that, to focus on that minutia, on the lists of rules, on the practices of things that are long since forgotten, things that we don't even deal with anymore, things about sacrifices, things about purity, things about all sorts of stuff. It doesn't mean that we're going to follow all of the rules. It doesn't mean that every one of those rules applies to us in this day. But the rules are actually really important. In some cases, they are really the most important thing. And if we get sort of the grand visions, right? If we only think about, what is God doing for me right now? What is this trip to shul doing for me right now? I hope it's doing something for all of you. I really hope so. Okay? I hope it's doing something for me. But at the end of the day, that can't be the only thing. We can't just gather together and pray and make ourselves feel really good and then go out there in the world that is literally burning and do nothing about it. Okay? That's the key piece of balancing in Judaism, which is understanding that, right, we tend to think if we build our own spirituality up first, then we'll be able to go out there in the world and share that light, so to speak. But she's trying to get us to remember that actually, in our way of thinking, at least traditionally, we usually do it in the other direction, right? That actually the mitzvot are the avenue for our deeper spirituality. The more that we put that something in the pushka on our way to pray, in literal or metaphoric terms, right? Any way that we can remind ourselves of the constant obligation to act in this world, to be the light in this world, to bring what is certainly in each one of us on a spiritual level, but to find that through the acts, through the doing, through the contemplation of what it means to be commanded and obligated. And I think that's actually a really beautiful teaching. Challenging, for sure. And I'm not sure that I agree with 100%. But I think she's pushing us. And she's pushing us, I think, in the right direction about how to think about a portion like this, how to think about a book like this, and how to think about our Jewish lives, especially in a world that's breaking. And as a last word, Nadav and Avihu and their experience and what happens to them, I don't think it can be justified. I don't think there's any way to justify it in the end. It's terrible, and especially anybody who is a parent, to think about what Aaron's experience is like. 2 seconds beforehand, everybody's happy. 5 seconds later, 2 of his sons are gone. It's hard to wrap a head around that. But if we look on a metaphoric level and we see what is the example ultimately of these 2 young guys, they're so enthusiastic, they're so almost zealotous in their behavior that they just basically push the rules aside. They say that, at the end of the day, what does God want from me? He wants us to, light stuff on fire on the altar. Let's go do it. And in forgetting all of the procedures, all of the laws, something gets broken. And yes, it's a hyperbolic story, and yes, it's one that we're not comfortable with, and I'm not ever going to be comfortable with. But on a metaphoric level, I think there is something to be said for that if we can hold in suspense for a moment the grisly death part of it, which I know is a lot to ask, that there is something to be learned about what Nadav and Avihu ultimately do and what not to do in our case. Spirituality is wonderful. Meditation is a wonderful thing. All of those things are great. We are a mystical people on many levels. Kabbalat Shabbat is all about mystical ideas. But at the end of the day, we're also a people of rules and laws and very much expectations. And I think right now the world is calling us to rise to the expectations. And I thank all of you of this community for the way in which we have done that recently and the way that we do that really every kind of day. I think that to me is one of the things I'm really most proud of in this congregation. So with that, I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, and read the Parsha tomorrow. It's got a lot in there, and join us for services of Torah study. We'll talk even more about it. And in the meanwhile, we'll invite Cantor Lauren back up to the bima, and I'll invite all of you to turn to page 586 at the very bottom of the page, as we will sing Aleinu together. Again, page 586 at the very bottom. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kayoye ha'aratzot, velo samanu kamishmechot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonaham, vanachnu korim umishtachavim umodim, Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. We're now on page 591. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Now invite those in mourning and those observing yahrzeit to please remain standing. Everyone else may be seated at this time. We first begin by thinking of those in our community who have passed in recent months. Dr. John Abderkin, Faith Diskin, Linda Donath, Arlene Eber, Jay Fagan, Ellen Frank, Evelyn Gelb, Chaim Bear Greenwald, Arthur Grossman, Gerald Hirsch, Mark Joseph, Gertrude Katz, Deirdre Klein, Leo Leibowitz, William Lippman, Audrey Lubo, Morty Lynn, Jerry Monroe, Nancy Nagel, Harry Olstein, Harriet Roth, Jeannie Rubin, Howard Schreier, David Senft, Marlise Silverberg, Blanche Sklar, Rita Sandra Snyder, Joan Strong Tangzilius, Matthew Adam Zimmerman, and Sandra Tromberg Luongo. We also mark the art sites that occurred during the last week for Mabel Barron, Haven Bloom, Jeanette Brown, Morris Dickstein, Sue Fisher, Minnie Galpern, Meyer Goldstein, Carol Halpern, John Hammerman, Philip Karp, Linda Katana, Sylvia Levitt, Shirley Morris, Jacob Ratner, Morris Rosen, Gabriel Schwartz, Rabbi Harold Stein, Herman Weinstein, Ethel Wyman, and Jason Zaretsky. In addition to the names we shared, if anyone has additional names that they'd like to mention, Alex Riley, again. So we'll invite those that choose to do so to rise in solidarity with those remembering their loved ones. Mourners can join me on page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'b'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'agalav zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'le'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shalama Rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing.
Amen.
Okay, please be seated, everybody. Good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Cantor.
Shabbat shalom.
So a few quick announcements. First is to join us for Shabbat services beginning tomorrow, 9:30 on Zoom, and then Torah study, which will begin at 12 o'clock on Zoom. All are, of course, welcome to join us. If you'd rather watch the stream, you can certainly do that on our website, Facebook, or YouTube channel. Also a reminder, this Sunday is Maureen's Haven Shelter, so please sign up to help our communities respond to homelessness in our area. Again, please contact Shelley Lichtenstein if you want to get involved in any way, shape, or form, big or small. We are always looking for more help. Also a reminder that on Sunday at 7 o'clock, we're having a virtual program with the Weitzman Museum of American Jewish History titled Courageous Choices. Through storytelling, music, and dance, we will see how an artist's childhood adversities were channeled into an artistic risk-taker and respected role model. So there's still plenty of time to sign up. Again, that'll be Sunday at 7 o'clock. Coming up this week, Ninevitz will be meeting at 9 o'clock on Monday morning. My Heschel class is at 12 o'clock on Zoom. Hebrew School is in person at 3:30 p.m. later in the afternoon, and the Social Justice Committee will have its regular meeting at 5 o'clock. On Wednesday, Hebrew School will be meeting at 3:30. On Thursday at 7 o'clock, we're having a Zoom book discussion led by educator Sandra Dubin on the recent Barry Weiss book, How to Fight Anti-Semitism. If you'd like to read the book before the talk, especially if you're here tonight, we do have a few copies in my office if anybody doesn't have it and would like it. But you don't have to read the book necessarily to join in the discussion. Again, that's Thursday at 7 o'clock. And my Friday class begins at 9:15, A Journey to the Heart of the Siddur. Just a reminder that the April calendar should be coming up. A lot of things going on in April, including Pesach, of course. And certainly, keep your eyes peeled for a lot of good things coming up. Thought for those that were on the Funny Girls Zoom last night was actually really great. Anybody on that's here tonight? Well, that's good. It shows the diversity of our congregation. There are like 30 people on there. That's great. Anyway, a lot of great, very, 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 very funny women and a lot of great comedy and a lot of great movies to watch. So if you got nothing going on this weekend, you let me know and I'll give you a list of great stuff to watch. But, a lot of good things coming and it feels like almost summer somehow. Spring? Let's go to spring first and then we'll go to summer after that. Also, just, I hope I'm not going to embarrass them, but I'd like everybody to say a hello. I have some wonderful new friends towards the back there. So Sydney and Alex are getting married this summer. I'm doing that wedding. And Ira and Shelley, who are on either side, are Sydney's parents. And as I mentioned, Cindy and I share a love of the University of Wisconsin, but we won't talk about them right now. So it's off there. But we're very excited for you guys. We're very happy you could join us tonight. And also, on a more somber note, to extend my love and connection, of course, to the Zaretsky family. I know this is always a tough year, and I know normally we get to celebrate an oneg afterwards, and there isn't quite that. But I hope you are surrounded by the love that would have been surrounding you guys in the social hall. And I know it's hard. And of course, Bernie, I know you remember Linda tonight also. It's hard. So on a more positive note, bring us out and into Shabbat with full hearts. We'll turn into the cantor for a closing song, and then we'll do Kiddush.
So we're going to end with what we started with. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam Shalom. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam Shalom. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam.
We'll turn to page 604 for Kiddush, and we'll rise and body your spirit. And if you're at home, you can grab your Kiddush cup as well. Oh, actually, not 604, 123. Sorry, on the wrong day. There we go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzav banu v'shabbat kodsho b'ava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh Zecher letziat Mitzrayim ki banu bacharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim ve'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava u'ratzon inchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen.
L'chaim.
Okay. Good Shabbos, everybody. Please get home safe, and good Shabbos to all of our Zooming friends and streaming friends. Oh, yeah. Sorry, forgot to mention, just to remind everybody, next Sunday is the...
They can still register.
You can still register. Next Sunday is the Women's Seder. Okay, again, Sunday, what time? 2 o'clock. Thank you, Mark. All right. Where did I put my ski mask? It's the problem with suits, too many pockets. Too many pockets. I know this is
Women's
not
clothing.
a problem. You have the opposite problem, I know.
It's like you get excited when you have pockets.
I actually think that part of my existence is just to be a pocket for others.
I need
It's
pockets
just like,
because I put things down and I don't remember where I put it.
well,
Ever. Especially my phone and my keys.
these things do happen. Good shot, buddy. I'm sorry, here, I got your hands off there. They are so lovely. They are like lovely kids to teach, and I'm sorry I couldn't teach them yesterday. He's much better now, but life isn't complete until your child projectile vomits on you.
Oh.
That's yeah, it's a better feeling. No, exactly. It's if anything was going to turn you off of dairy, I think that's probably the experience. But he's such a funny guy though. He literally hurls all over me and then immediately smiles. Like